I love what he said about Dare to Be Great. I love that he didn't hide his face one bit. I love that he just went 25 minutes with Jan Blachowicz. To put that in perspective, that is 23 more minutes than Dominic Reyes went with Jan Blachowicz, and it is 4 rounds longer than former world champion Luke Rockhold went with Jan Blachowicz. I mean, in many ways, Adesanya showed something, including what his vulnerability is. Right, we saw this very early on in Adesanya's career. And I'm talking the X's and O's getting taken down and being held there. It looked as though he solved that problem. Never even got taken down against Derek Brunson, who's a very good wrestler. Only gave up 1 takedown against Joel Romero, who's an even better wrestler. And by the way, Adesanya scrambled back up to his feet. But it looks as though, and I do feel that size mattered, it was very visible. Set aside what the scale said of a 5-pound weight difference. When you saw them on fight night, it was clear through the television. I can't recall a time at any weight class aside from heavyweight when it has been so blatantly clear. And by the way, Izzy had some great moments. I don't have any knock on Izzy. I have a lot of praise for Jan, but that's my take.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you. I don't like to correct you. I think Dominic Reyes went a little longer than 2 minutes, but your point stands. It was a great performance against, a bigger guy. He was in there going into the championship rounds, and in the end, Jan had an amazing game plan. He took him down to the ground, and he did his thing in the 4th and 5th rounds. I don't view Israel Adesanya any differently than I did exactly 1 week ago, and I said this after the fight, Chael. If you've been following his career, or even if you've learned more about his career now, if you're just starting to learn more about Izzy, you know that this man has lost before. He's not Khabib Nurmagomedov. He wasn't 28, 29-0 going into this fight. He was knocked out in his last kickboxing fight. He had 5 fights, 5 losses on his resume in kickboxing. He had 1 loss in pro boxing. Like, this guy has stumbled before. He has dared to be great before. He has gone up all the way to heavyweight before. He's learned from those mistakes. He's come back down. He's been able to rebound and regroup and have a great career. And so, to me, this doesn't view him any differently now as a middleweight champion. He's still the best middleweight. He's one of the all-time best middleweights already. He's 9-0 as a middleweight. He just met a better fighter at 205 who had a better game plan and was the better man on that night. To say that now, the bloom is off the rose and all this guy was overhyped is hogwash. And Chael, I'll remind you of UFC 94, and I'll remind you of when GSP fought BJ Penn. And BJ Penn was moving up from 155 and got out-muscled and outworked in that fight. What happened after that fight? BJ Penn went back down to 155 and had his best 2 performances as a lightweight champion. He went through Kenny Florian, and he absolutely smoked Diego Sanchez. There is nothing that leads me to believe that Israel Adesanya won't do the same when he goes back down to 185.
Yeah, and Ariel, everybody has a number. When you're talking about weight, you have a number. What do I compete my best at? Not just division. What do I need to weigh when I go into that division? Let me use Daniel Cormier as a great example. But Daniel's somebody that I have known since 1999 and worked out with on and off. When I grabbed a hold of him, a.k.a. workout room, when he had moved to heavyweight, Ariel, it was a different guy. And I just remember going, Daniel, you have found your number. Daniel didn't want to be a heavyweight. For whatever reason, in the Olympic Games, he was 211. He liked to be a light heavyweight. He was a heavyweight. And when he got to that right number, it was a different person. His balance was different. His timing was different. His offense and defenses were different. I just bring that to you as an example that you will know. I don't know what Izzy's number is. But Izzy also doesn't know. It appears that Blachowicz has found it. And by the way, Adesanya's little experiment here was destined for failure. Had he got by Blachowicz, he was going to go on up to heavyweight. And that's not just rumor. That crazy, he would have done it. Eventually, it was going to fail. So what, in my opinion?
Yeah, so what, in this fight game, and especially in MMA, I love the fact that losses don't define fighters. I hate the fact that losses define boxers, that people get so hung up on these losses. You can go on a 10-fight winning streak after a loss and people will still talk about the one time you suffered a defeat. Here's Israel Adesanya, who had it all, who has it all, who was 9-0 in the UFC, 20-0 as an MMA fighter, who could have stayed at 185 and fought the guys there, many of whom he already beat, right? Marvin Vettori, Derek Brunson, Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa. These same guys are still at the top of the middleweight division. He said, you know what? I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to dare to be great. I'm going to move up. And if I lose, so be it. I'll still show up to the post-fight press conference. I'll still show up on social media, and I'm going to go back down and defend my title. There are other champions out there, Chael, and you know who I'm talking about, who stayed on their spot as champion and people called for them to move up, and they never wanted to do it. You know what? I got a lot of respect for Izzy for daring to be great and for risking it all.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.